Good morning from Finland. And we are dealing with Glamour, a World Problem, the Dissipation of Glamour webinar. I'm happy to see you here this morning, whatever time it may be for you. And we are continuing in the reading of the book. It's a wonderful book, and I've just been alerted to the idea that the section we're going to be looking at today is also, or has also been presented, I think, with quite a few illustrations by Francis Donald in his Secret Doctrine webinars. So I think on Makara you can pick that up as well and apply what we discuss here to the images that he has created. These are the foundational creative images for our particular planet and system, and so they have a great significance. Well, okay, let's see, there are a number of us here. We've managed to bring ourselves here, and so just good morning to Annette, Barbara, Carl, Catherine, Ecclesia, Deborah, Gregory, Helen, and Joe. She's here with us, backing us up on the staff. Karen, Margot, Marianne, Mariut, Martha, Michael, Olivia, Rebecca, Roswitha, Stacia, Tuija, and Vera. And we are ready to go. But before we begin our continued reading, let's just have a moment of quiet as we realize that wherever we may be geographically, in terms of consciousness, we are approximating one field. When it comes to consciousness, we have a condition of non-locality, really, essentially, although the form may seem to contain and localize the consciousness, but ultimately the true nature of consciousness is all pervading. So we have a field of aspiring helpers for hierarchy, and we are somewhat localized, but we are on this planet at least, and we seek to receive inspiration from the higher aspects of our nature and to apply that inspiration to the task at hand, which is the clarification of the astral plane and the whole Kama Manasic setup. And this is to be our contribution to helping humanity enter before long the Aquarian age in the right way. Many tests and trials await humanity in these next 100 years. The Aquarian age beginning, technically considered, according to the Tibetan, in the year 2117, which is very close to the 2125, which will be the subsequent conclave, not the impending one now, but one after. And we have a lot of clearing to do in ourselves and in the general atmosphere of human consciousness. So you can feel the assembled energies, and we can be successful in working a little bit, just a little, after all. One more step in the weakening of the obstacles and the bringing in of the great sun of truth and light, which will render the astral plane the receiver of the energy of love and the distributor which it should be. So we'll just sound the Om quietly to confirm our willingness to work together at this. Okay, friends. So now we've been working with symbols, and or at least we've been working with the idea of why the study of symbols is important. We can make up our own symbols, of course, and many of them are also appearing in our work. The entire zodiac is symbolically represented, and there are many geometrical symbols, such as those that are found in relation to the secret doctrine. There are the Platonic solids, which have a huge meaning. You know, the tetrahedron is the very first, and the four others, you know, dodecahedron, icosahedron, and there are 5, at least in our present system, and no more. And entire books have been given to the explication of those symbols. In fact, it's possible to look at everything that is presented to our consciousness as symbolic in nature. Everything that we see, if we apply the faculty of spiritual reading, can lead inwardly to its cause, and we can begin to access the energies of the higher worlds by relating what we can understand in the immediate foreground to those higher worlds. So there is a thing called a faculty called spiritual reading, and well, I'll show you, or spiritual discernment anyway, which is related to the faculty of spiritual reading. And here it is on the mental plane above the dotted line, which means that we begin to connect with a soul ability. It is a mental ability. To an extent, it's on the 3rd subplane. Well, they all are mental abilities because it's the mental plane, but it's the 3rd subdivision, and it means, the spiritual discernment written in green here, that whatever you encounter can be interpreted symbolically. Things tend to show up on the side of my screen, and it's not exactly what I want. So all of a sudden, there are factors here that don't belong. But just bear with me, and I'll try to keep the invasion within bounds. So this we are going to be developing all of these cities, including the faculties, abilities, psychic powers, including the ones that are not listed eventually because they are too high. But as we build the Antakarana, we start with the comprehension of the four sounds and the healing touch and divine vision and intuition and so forth. On every level, there are 5 available to us as we move towards mastership. Meanwhile, as we develop our soul abilities, the first 2, spiritual discernment and response to group vibration, are accessible to us with normal soul alignment. And once we enter the spiritual triad through the building of the Antakarana, then spiritual telepathy, which conveys something of the divine plan, begins to impress us, and on into some of the Buddhic factors, and eventually the Atmic factors. The arhats and the masters can work in this area, which for us is simply an area of a potential receptivity. But of course, we become more and more refined all the time, and the revelation, which is always present, though undetected, can begin to impress our consciousness, and we will be living in a far richer and more interesting and subtle world. So that's what occult development is all about, and we will be able to serve the divine plan because we understand the causes of things, and we can work on the side of those causes. So the interpretation of symbols is one of the ways of bringing us into the higher realms where the symbols really count. And I would recommend that when Francis Donald has his Secret Doctrine study group, that you make your way there, as I have a couple of times anyway, and it's really very good. It's a great service, and it will, knowing what the Secret Doctrine is, it's going to go on for some years. Okay, now let's continue a little bit, and please make note about what you might like to discuss or any points of interest that come up for you as we begin this work on page 9. Okay. Students should ascertain, which means to be certain about, right? Therefore, after due study, it's careful study, of the form aspect, what the symbol is doing to them. For instance, suppose we all were to visualize at this moment a radiant sun. Now that visualization, of course, we would spend longer, of course, but that visualization of the sun showing up in so many composite symbols is a symbol of transformation. As Carl Jung would say, it has an effect upon us. What is that effect? Or what are the several effects of this radiant sun? I always visualize a sun on the astral plane after the clearing has occurred because it is sometimes considered the symbol of Buddhi, and we want to clear the astral plane for the love wisdom expression that can come from Buddhi. It's many things. It's illumination. It's warmth. It's a great symbol of integration. What does it mean to you? You see, that's the thing. Now let us. This is just a simple example. Let us visualize the crescent moon. And let us imagine that moon is getting fuller and fuller, moving towards the first quarter. and beyond it into the gibbous phase, as they call it, until we have the full moon. When you look at that inwardly, what do you feel? What is that symbol? What effect is that symbol having upon you? And then it begins to wane, as it wanes. Here in the northern hemisphere, it looks more like the letter C. And as it increases, it looks more like the letter D. That's why they say the moon lies. When it looks like a D for decrease, it's increasing. And when it looks like a C for increasing, it's decreasing. Until it just disappears. So there are two profound symbols in humanity's consciousness, the sun and the moon. They are also heavenly bodies, but they suggest so much. And we'd have to spend time with those relatively simple symbols in order to judge not only what they mean to human consciousness as a whole, but how they affect our energy system, what we feel, where we feel it. So the symbol becomes personal in a way, or at least it reacts upon our energy system, and we have to find out how it does so. And the various ray symbols which may correlate with our rays. I suppose a first ray soul will have a stronger response to the symbol of the sword than will the second ray souls or other types. And when we're dealing with the lotus or the rose, maybe the second ray types will respond more than the first ray types, and so forth. Many, many symbols are found in relation to the rays and seem to evoke the presence of the energies of the rays. So the number of symbols are legion, many. You can invent your own, others are invented. Some will suggest themselves to you, and it's our bridge from the visual to the formless forms. Even on the cosmic ethers, there are forms, but they are not of the solid, apparently solid type that we encounter on the lower 18 subplanes or even the lower 21 subplanes. So if we go through life activating this symbolic consciousness, there's no telling what we might be able to touch in the subtle worlds. One of the ways of attuning, let us say, with the egoic lotus, the causal body, that energy structure found on the higher levels of the mental plane, is to contemplate the lotus. And that has been an object of contemplation in the East for a long time. And if we contemplate in the right way, perhaps a rapport will be established between the more familiar object in the lower worlds and the higher energic object on the higher mental plane, and so forth. Anyway, it's a vast subject and will be with us for as long as we study occultism, at least in the way we are studying it now. So let us cultivate the symbolic or symbolizing consciousness, and at the same time bring forth our capacity for spiritual discernment. All right, that's a little digression here. Students should ascertain after due study what the symbol is doing to them, what feeling it evokes. what aspirations it arouses. Now, the symbol, two symbols for the Aquarian age, we are told by the Tibetan, are going to be the torch and the lotus. The torch and the lotus. Well, I think when we see a flaming torch, the idea of aspiration is much associated. It burns, it brings light. What does it mean to you? Does it bring courage? Does it bring fear? What does it arouse? What dreams, illusions, and reactions are consciously registered in the presence of various symbols? So maybe the important thing is simply to develop the symbolizing consciousness, which views all of life's presentations, impacts, in a bridging manner. Obviously, Mercury is involved with this. It's the great interpretive planet, and it goes from low to high and high to low. This stage is an intermediate one between the exoteric reading of a symbol and the conceptual understanding. He's given us three ways of approaching a symbol. Exoterically, we're, examining the form. Conceptually, what is the thought and the purpose behind the symbol? And finally, esoterically, having to do with the energies which we can evoke from the higher worlds. And now he's giving us some intermediary stages. There will be 5 in all, found between the first 3. So it's intermediate between the exoteric reading and the conceptual understanding. And later he says another intermediate stage between conceptual understanding and esoteric comprehension. Notice that word, which suggests a vast view, is used, comprehension. We gather it all under a single eye and application. And this latter stage is called synthetic recognition. So it lies between the concept and the actual work with the higher energies, esoterically. So having studied the form and become aware of its emotional significance to us, you pass to the stage of grasping the basic idea of the symbol, and from thence, they say that would be the conceptual stage, grasping the basic idea, so we'll call this the conceptual stage, and from thence to a synthetic comprehension of its purpose in a larger way, okay, and the relations of the symbol in a larger way, and comprehensive way. And this will lead finally to the 5th stage, what is now considered a 5th stage and not just a 3rd stage, to true esotericism. Now think about this, because the 7th sense of the senses with which we are endowed is the esoteric sense. So this leads to true esotericism, which is, note, the practical application of its living synthetic power to the springs of individual life and action. So we're in the higher worlds when we're talking about this. We are in the realm of synthesis. Maybe the synthesis petals of the egoic lotus will be involved, as they are after every initiation, summarizing what has been done in every circle of the egoic lotus. And we will apply this to the roots, to the springs, which has brought our individual emanative life into expression in the lower worlds. Now, DK realizes he's presenting to us something rather new, and he will summarize before long. So if we're not quite sure, what we're dealing with here, it will be hammered home, and we will get a good grasp of it. So we have the exoteric study, then we have the effect, the study of the effect, then we have the general concept, And then we have the synthetic stage, synthetic comprehension, and finally the esoteric stage. So it probably wouldn't hurt if I simply put them down here in that order, and he will repeat that, of course. Exoteric and effect, and then conceptual, and then synthetic, and then esoteric. These are the 5 stages that are involved in studying a symbol, and it doesn't hurt to take some symbols and go through all 5 stages. Now, something may strike us immediately, and we have the sense of what it is, and maybe we seem to be jumping over a few of these stages, and maybe we are. But in the academic study of symbols, it's very well to follow the process that he is talking about. And basically, you know, when symbols are studied in a strictly academic manner, as they would be in universities or whatever, we never may reach some of the higher stages because those stages are not believed to exist. But because we are studying occultism, we are going into the roots of our energy system, and we are touching upon those aspects of our nature which are higher and which have to gradually make their impression upon our ordinary personality consciousness. I would ask you to render not only an intelligent interpretation of the symbol, and you know that this will come under the planet Mercury, but also a recognition of the more subtle reaction of your sensitive feeling nature to the symbol as a whole. And it will be, you know, different for different people. What might really arouse and inspire a certain type of consciousness may terrify another. So, you know, it all depends on what our energy system is, what our experience has been in life. The effect of the symbol will depend upon the condition of our subtle, our objective and subtle form. So he's going, you know, he actually has a specific task in mind for these people. I think the war was coming, actually, you know, at this time. Early in the piece, it's the early 1930s, and it was not really understood whether there was going to be an interruption of the work, which the Second World War managed to be. They even wondered, could they continue? You know, did they have enough paper? Did they have enough supplies? Did they have enough money? All of this was a big consideration as time went on. But at this early time, you know, it could have been continued, and the Christ himself could have reappeared before the end of the 20th century, and members of the hierarchy before that. But there was a great interruption, and it was the second phase of the Great War, and there was more to it as well, because atomic energy came on the scene, producing weapons of a nature which had never been seen before, with the capacity of destroying humanity. And this was really something that had to be dealt with. And so the fifth ray ashram was pulled out of effective contribution from 1950 to the year 2000, something of that nature. And maybe I'm not sure, excuse me, where it is right now, but that kind of questing fifth ray mentality had to be somewhat subdued, otherwise greater means of destruction might have been formed. So even the hierarchy cannot anticipate everything. And this whole process was somewhat delayed. But anyway, in the beginning, the study of 4 symbols a year, and then he's repeating and repeating this, so we get it, right? First, approach the symbol from its form aspect and seek to familiarize yourself with its outer aspect, with the sum total of lines, triangles, squares, circles, crosses, and other forms of which it is composed. And as you do this, endeavor to comprehend it from the standpoint of the intellect, using your memory and what knowledge you have to understand it esoterically. Well, you can, I think we talked about it last time, you can study a pentagram, you can study the five-pointed star with all its various triangles involved, and its pentagon in the center and so forth. That is one example. You're simply noting the number of points. You're noting the number of lines, the number of geometrical figures. You're just counting them up, and they will all have something to do with interpreting the symbol in a deeper manner. Then, as soon as the symbol is truly familiar to you, because your memory has to be working here if you're going to be able to meditate on it, and truly familiar to you, and can be recalled to mind with little effort, because you've studied it, it can be put in your mind's eye easily. Endeavor to sense its quality. Now, you know how it goes. Appearance, quality, life. I'm taking it in reverse order. And so is he. He is moving according to the life, quality, appearance, quality, life, sequence. So the very first thing is appearance, and we note that very carefully. And then comes the qualitative study, which is more emotional and has more to do perhaps with the soul. So endeavor to sense its quality, to contact its vibration, and to note its emotional effect upon you. So remember that when you're looking around, developing your symbolizing consciousness, that what you see is having an effect upon you. Now try to be as conscious. I'm looking right here at a cactus, maybe at several cactuses. Do I like the form? What is it? Is it making me a little bit uncomfortable because of the spines that are coming out of the cactus? I would have to note that, because there's an element of danger and protectiveness in this particular form that I'm staring at the moment. But maybe other things too, strength and, the ability to withstand pressures from the external environment and so forth. And the rose, after all, you look at the beauty of the rose, okay? So just imagine this wonderful red rose, which is in many ways the symbol of the Christ. And then there are all the thorns in the stems leading to the rose. As you contemplate the beauty of the rose, what does it do to you? As you contemplate the thorns, what effect does it have upon you? Does it motivate you to grasp the rose and, undergo the sacrifice and bleed a bit on the way to that full expression? Or do you stand back and does it induce caution in you? For every person, it will be different. So endeavor to sense its quality, to contact its vibration, and, it takes a little while, okay? And to note its emotional effect upon you. And then he is practical here. This may vary from day to day, or it may be always the same. Be simply honest in your noting this astral reaction to the symbol, and see where such reactions lead you. Remembering always that they are not yet, I would say, intuitional, but are reactions to the feeling or astral body. One of the big mistakes that we often make is thinking that which occurs in the astral body is occurring in the intuitive realm. Well, it may be a link to the intuitive realm if interpreted wisely, but it's not yet the intuitive realm, and that's why you know how it goes. The hierarchy is found on the astral plane, but it's not the real hierarchy. It's simply a reflection, and there's lots of thought form building that has gone into it, and people get deluded for a long time as they encounter the masters on the astral plane. As a matter of fact, one of the disciples, was he BSW or something like that? The rays were 1, 7, 4, 6, 7, something like that. He was encountering this hierarchy on the astral plane, and he was conversing with it, and he was captivated by it and deeply interested in it. And DK said, look, this is not the real thing. If you continue to do this, we can't have you in the group. Eventually, he did leave the group. And this came from the days when you were a monk long ago. And it was so boring in the monastery. Your life was so regular and so boring and so unrelieved that you learned how to go out onto the astral plane and find a wider life and deeper interest, but you're carrying it over and it's not real. So we have to understand that the emotional plane is very accessible to us, but it contains many, many unrealities, and that's what we're trying to deal with now as we work together on this glamour dissipation. And finally, take note of what you have found to be for you the basic quality of the symbol, and then, as in meditation work, lift the whole subject to the mental realm by bringing the focused, attentive mind to it. And then we will enter the conceptual stage, and this will lead you, yes, to the realm of concepts. So here is a sort of a summary, and maybe that's as far as we're going to go today. I know that, at the present rate of discussion, we may be here in the year 2025 discussing this book, but let's just see how it goes along. We have consequently the following stages in the analysis of a symbol. So I think, basically it's very important to get these steps clearly in our mind. Now, DK has many, many lists. I've been working lately on some video commentaries for a treatise on white magic, and there's about 45 of them that are done right now, and Brett has been getting them up on Makara. So, it's a wonderful book, and if you're interested in sort of studying along with me, those programs are up there for you. But the book is filled with lists, and it's filled with steps that you have to take. And it's all of this kind of technical, careful, even 5th ray, 7th ray approach to everything you're doing. And you may say, why should I bother with all this? But it is necessary to get clearly in your mind these various steps, which, if carefully followed, will lead you to becoming the true white magician and member of the hierarchy. Anyway, little diversion. Okay. So the following stages in the analysis of the symbol. Number 1, it's exoteric consideration, line, form, and color. Okay, it's just concrete mind. You just look at it. He's repeating himself, right? He's going to keep repeating himself until we get it. Number 2, and this he brought up as an intermediary stage, a comprehension in the astral or emotional body of its quality, the reaction of a sensitive response to the impact of its qualitative nature, different for every individual. Okay, so you really have to know with all honesty what it is for you. Number 3, a conceptual consideration of its underlying idea, of what it is intended to teach, of the intellectual meaning it is intended to convey. This is different than just counting up the lines and angles and triangles and squares. Overall, what's the thought behind this symbol? What's the main thing it's trying to convey? Then this other stage, also intermediary, and he mentioned it, the stage of the synthetic grasp of the purpose of the symbol, of its place in an ordered manifesting plan, of its true unified intent. In other words, these symbols are supposed to do something which brings the divine plan closer to manifestation. And so what is that purpose, and how does the symbol sorry, represented, RP, represented. Okay. So this is yet another stage, and this is a comprehensive stage, and represents significance. Significance. The world of significance lies, which is the world of the soul, lies beyond the world of meaning. No, let me say that the other way around. The world of significance is the world of the triad, and it lies behind the world of meaning, which is the world of the soul. Got to get those things straight, you know? The world of ultimate causes, logoic. The world of being, monadic. The world of significance, triadal. The world of meaning, the soul, and simply the world of manifestation, the lower 18 or 21 subplanes. Finally, the fifth, identification with the quality and purpose of the symbol as it is illuminated by the mind, held steady in the light. This final stage brings into activity the brain as well as the mind. And what do we have here? Finally, the esoteric understanding of the symbol and the effective alignment of soul, mind, brain, and eventually triad, mind, brain. And it enters the soul-infused mind, the triad, through the building of the rainbow bridge, enters the soul-infused mind and makes its way down to the brain. Well, you know, he's going to continue to deal with these things, and we will work with his suggestions, but this will be the end. Whoop. Okay, didn't want that. There it is. This will be the end of our Dissipation of Glamour, number 67, an academic reading section. Okay.
Michael,
yes.
Frederick has a question that you might want to address. He says, don't you think any symbol has an energy representation?
Okay, but I tell you what, Joe, I'm going to address it as soon as I finish this in the question and answer section. Okay, so I just want to finish this and then I'm going to do it. Okay. Okay. As soon as I finish labeling this thing, and then I'll get to Frederick's question. Academic reading section, and today is the 16th of February. And I'm doing everything in order as much as I can, which is maybe uncharacteristic of me, but okay, I'm doing it. Doggy number 68 is coming, and that will be over here on the 23rd. So this is the academic reading section on the 23rd of February. Now, let me go over here to the, okay, now, let's see. Does Frederick have that written out, Joe?
Yes. Anne, I've taken care of Anne's questions, so it's the last one.
Okay, so goodness, I don't see the, there it is. Very good. Okay. So, okay. Don't you think, occasionally I do, okay, don't you think any symbol has an energy representation? Yes, and let's just say that the symbol, this is why Carl Jung called these important symbols anyway, symbols of transformation, because symbols of transformation, they all carried a certain type of energy which could impact the psyche for good or for ill. We cannot think that all symbols are positive in their nature. Let us say there are many ways to interpret the inverted five-pointed star in a negative manner, and they were used in invocations which were not holy at all, but dealt with the lower magic. But associated with every symbol, yes, there are energies. But it's also important about what kind of energy reaches you, and not simply the general energy associated with it. The identification, you go on to say, could be related to the skills of our inner and the way we can listen to this. Identification warning. Identification warning. The esoteric understanding of a symbol could be like a sensor. No, it's okay. And everything. Yes, exactly. You say correctly. It can be positive or negative energy. The idea is, look, there has to be a bridging into worlds of revelation, which are always present but undetected because of our lack of sensitivity, our lack of understanding, our lack of a sufficient vibratory structure which will connect us with inner worlds which have a much higher vibration and more subtle forms. So we have to use these symbols in order to create bridges. Now, if this is a very Mercurian type of activity. Mercury is the bridging planet. It's the planet of the Antikarana. Gemini is involved with the Antikarana. And basically, symbols correctly approached are like Antikaranas to their higher corresponding energy states. But to say that all people will interpret a symbol in the same way, or will receive from the symbol the same energy, is probably to exaggerate the case, because we have different sensitivities and we have a different past that has led to our growth, and symbols will simply mean different things to different people. But to tune in on the energy which a symbol seems to be carrying to us is at least a beginning. Now later, if we have some kind of global comprehension and are deeply studied in this, the way Carl Jung was, we can look at what a symbol has meant for humanity. Now, just think for a moment about the cross. For some people, the symbol of the cross is tremendously inspiring, and it uplifts them. For others, it is terrifying and shows some kind of future in which they will be, if they identify with their personality, led into very sacrificial situations. For other people, it is like the symbol of an enemy. Even, they can't trace it to its deep astronomical and astro-psychological meaning, and they look upon it and it arouses antipathy, anger, and so forth. We had an interesting thing happen here in Finland. Our airplanes used to carry the sign of the cross, which is in the colors of Finland. It's found in the flag of Sweden and in all the Scandinavian countries and in Finland, different colors and so forth. The danger to the airplanes was too great if the sign of the cross was going to be left on the tail, because it was arousing in certain groups great antipathy. So symbols will be read in different ways according to the comprehension and understanding and sensitivity of the interpreter. And we're not all going to get the same thing from them. And hopefully we find for ourselves certain symbols which really inspire us and lead us into a spiritual progression. But we cannot find a commonality that it works the same for everybody. Now, what about music here? Okay, right. So, Frederick, that's kind of my answer there. If we have the true esoteric understanding and not just emotional reactivity to a symbol, we will get into its very essence, and then we're likely to bridge into the Buddhic worlds and even beyond with the symbol. Okay, so that much. And then now another thought or question is coming up here. I wonder about music, whether the quality or idea or energy behind a piece of music could be seen as a symbol, or the music itself as a symbol of some kind of higher energy, I would say. And if one meditated or focused or sensed the energy behind a piece of music, would begin to form a visual symbol, or is it a different level? You know, there are certain people who, I had a student once who was a, gosh, what do they call it? Synesthesiast, something of that nature. He would see sound and hear color, and he was deeply into this fourth ray Davic world, and it was extremely real for him. And we kind of wonder, you know, what's such a person is seeing. But there are many people who have a pretty strong fourth ray, for whom the hearing of music will automatically produce certain visuals. And these visuals may be useful as well in relating to the level on which the music is pitched, we might say. Also, the contemplation of certain symbols for certain people may induce music. So, you know, to say that one is higher or lower, I couldn't say that. I'd say that they could occur on the same level, but we do know there is lower music and higher music. Sometimes I think, and I'm not going to talk about musical preference here, I have mine, everybody has theirs, but there's certain music that just doesn't get out of the base and sacral center. Other music is filled with solar plexus situations and longings, and it never rises above the diaphragm. Then there is heart music, which is very embracing and always makes people who are sensitive feel the energy of love. Then there are certain types of music which are strictly intellectual. And I've noticed the people involved in it, because you can have any ray and be involved in music, and they just love the intellectual interpretation of the music, and they're not moved by it at all in a heart or solar plexus manner. So different images may come along with such music. Maybe the very intellectual music will produce certain geometrical images. Maybe the heart music will produce something more natural, or what we would call beautiful, etc. And maybe, and I wouldn't doubt it, there's some very hellish images produced by some of this very low music, which arouses, in my opinion, all the worst that is in the human being. So these two things can go together side by side, image and music, and we cannot say necessarily that they are from different levels. Of course, you're a musician, and you know you probably have experience in this field. You know, and I don't know what you're singing lately, but a lot of the music, you know, has a deep cultural roots in the Maori tradition, and who knows what it evokes. You would know. You would know better than most. You know. Okay. Now. You know, I have no idea. Am I really adequately addressing these things? But at least I'm offering some, you know, thoughts to your thoughts. So, can we? Frederick is going on and saying, if we're practicing this sensing process, can improve our sensitivity? Absolutely. Uh, how do we? How do we improve our spiritual discernment? How can we truly detect the archetype that is behind any presentation? We have to practice and become more and more clear as we do this. The Platonic solids, for example. Oh, yes. There's a book by Plummer, is his name. It's a theosophical book. Is it The Mathematics of Cosmic Mind? Something like that. And he really goes into those Platonic solids, but it's not necessarily the last word. And they evoke very strong archetypes when you consider them. So yes, we can practice contemplation on complex symbols, and even the simple symbols can give us a starting point. Now, when the Tibetan gave out some of these complicated symbols, and I really don't know where they came from, they were really complicated. And you would have to spend like, I don't know how many months on each one in order to bring out what you think you saw within them. I wouldn't recommend starting with that kind of symbol. I would recommend simply starting with viewing the environment in terms of symbolic reading. Okay, is it right to think that we have to understand what feeling the symbol conveys so that we can distinguish it from the meaning it conveys on the higher planes? Okay, well, it's a good question, and I think both are valid. Its meaning on the higher planes to other types of minds may be one thing, but what does it mean to our individual energy system? We may be able to comprehend mentally some of that wider understanding without necessarily coming to terms with the effect it has upon us. But if we can come to terms, it will be much more meaningful in our life. So, we have to give maybe relatively equal attention to each of the five stages that the Tibetan has given. But we certainly can study one area or another. He rather does recommend, however, beginning with the exoteric and moving steadily, carefully inward. But it is possible to, many people have mental understanding of something without knowing what it does to them, what effect it has upon them. Okay, this was Anne. I'm sorry, Anne. I thought you were a continuation of Frederick, but okay. Yes, so that's my response to that one. Um, and then Frederick, you go on and say there is a relation between color, shape, and energy and sound. Absolutely, and it's involved in the magical process. And I suppose all of this is based on mathematics and the law of vibration, which is the very first solar systemic law. The law of vibration is the very first solar systemic law, and it is sort of the common denominator of everything that appears in light, in sound, and in color. So there's a mathematics behind this entire thing, and the combination of the fourth ray and the fifth ray, which is soon emerging. Now remember, the fourth ray is coming in from its monadic aspect in the year 2025, and the fifth ray is naturally carried by the constellation Aquarius and will be transmitted. So the whole idea of quantity and quality, of frequency and the form that frequency makes will become very much part of the human studies, and we will learn much more about the effect of these mathematically generated forms upon our psyche. I think, Frederick, you are interested in this subject. Okay, and then Roswitha has a question here. Are some symbols indicative of a sign to be aware? Well, okay. The seventh ray people have what I would call an omen consciousness. Now, DK is not entirely flattering about this type of consciousness, but they can look at what is transpiring in the environment, and they can look at it as indicating a hidden quality of a positive or negative nature. So you can interpret the environment symbolically, or what appears to you in your inner eye symbolically, as indicative of a sign to be aware of. It may lead you in the right direction, or it may warn you that you're going in the wrong direction and not to pursue that particular direction. So the positivity and negativity of symbols is something to be considered. And there are many people who are not going in a positive direction, and they still use symbols. Many of the, well, what are they invoking? They're not invoking the higher worlds, no. They're invoking some sort of quasi spirit demonic world Goethia. Goethia. It's called kind of a low type of magic where you're invoking lower beings and so forth. And you can do this in a symbolic manner too. We stay away from that and we think about how the symbols transport us to higher dimensions, which we have to begin to embrace if we're going to improve our nature, spiritually considered. So yes, in fact, that is possible to be the indication of a symbol, positive or negative, warning us, etc., etc. This is a subject of interest. So, following the 5 dimensions here, yes, okay, of awareness of a symbol, is there any filter for each dimension? I wonder if I understand the question. Okay, our soul might get the esoteric level of awareness. Yes, the beginning of the esoteric level of awareness will not come from the personality. And you can be very sharp mentally about what the symbol might mean without really touching the energy that is behind it, coming from the higher mental plane or beyond. So the esoteric level may be triadal or even monadic eventually. So the soul gets the esoteric level, you say, yes, in the beginning for the symbolic message. And of course, it is coming from our inner. But at the end, it is an energy. Yes, it is an energy. And what we're trying to do is contact all of these different energies of the 49 subplanes eventually of the cosmic physical plane. That's what we're trying to do. Now we can't deal with them at first. Even the masters can't deal with all of them. And even the masters are not masters yet on the triadal level. They are masters of the lower world. So every symbol, as you began your questioning and discussion, seems to carry its own type of energy, but it depends very much on the receiver. And that's something I really want to emphasize. In a general sense, how it's been used historically, we can discuss that, but the energy that an individual will notice with a symbol will depend very much on the energy system and experience of the individual. Now, when you look at a little square, what does it mean to the child? What does it mean to the average individual? What does it mean to the esotericist? The quality and scope of the interpreting consciousness is what reveals the energy of a symbol. And there may be much more hidden in a symbol from an energetic point of view than the interpreting consciousness can fathom. Well, okay, one day we'll be able to measure the energy. Certainly we can get its impact upon us. But in terms of measuring the vibratory levels of the higher dimensions, humanity isn't there yet. Maybe the masters are there. Right. And our soul, we can measure this energy and our soul can feel it. Well, look, we have to develop an intimacy with these higher energies. And I just want to say that I think symbols can get us there. So we're actually contacting the energies rather than just talking about them. Now, we can all talk intellectually about various levels, but coming face to face, contacting, touching, and all of that, that's what the symbol can do for us if we really bring it into our lives and not just hold it at arm's length in an intellectual manner. Right, friends, I think that's probably as far as I'm going to go right now. This subject seems to have aroused considerable interest. Okay, and I think some of these earlier ones were taken care of, Joe. I think Anne had a lot of.
Right, we took care of those. You have some hands up.
Okay, all right. Let's see what we got here. Okay, so yeah, Tuija, you go ahead. Wait a second. You are self-muted, and you're on twice for some reason. But if you can unmute yourself. Can you unmute yourself? There you go. Okay.
Michael.
Yes, go ahead.
I tried. Can you unmute me the mobile?
Okay, so I tried to do that, dear, but I can't. Well, anyway, I hear you very well. What you just said a minute ago, I hear you. So why don't you use that one that you just had on, okay? Can you go back to how you were talking? Because I heard your request and it was loud and clear. The yourself, there you go, there's one.
Okay, do you hear?
Okay, yeah, that's good enough. Okay, go ahead.
Yes, because I have headphone in this one. The whole symbolism, the ideas and thoughts what we have is interesting when we think about the letter itself is a symbol as well, but they are living beings. Like when we think about Thoth, which is the god of letter in Egyptian myths and legends, which can relate to Mercury. And we know that Mercury is very important then in the life of disciples, and also how we speak, how we use the speech. So this is taking us into that very interesting configuration that when we think about different languages and how the word is created, the meaning, for instance, we take the sun. We have the sun, the same meaning, but then there are many words around that same being. It is interesting to think about the manifestation, the diversity, what we have. But then one thing about the colors just happened a few days ago, what was so astonishing to me. I was writing this note donation where we are working now, kindly asking everybody to support the work. And there were three colors, white, orange, and blue. And I'm asking if you are interested to have an experiment, because it was blown out of my mind what was happening. I was just looking at the screen without no thought, just pausing, and my eyes were on the screen. So the background is black. The majority of the letters are in white. Then something was in orange and something was in blue. And you know these 3D images, when you just look through, there is something which is in front, and then you have the real image behind that. And my eyes went to that stage, and the orange went down, and then the white letters were like on the particular surface, and the orange went lower, and the blue was pumping up, like it was three-dimensional image of the letters. That was really amazing. I was just looking at it. What does it mean? So when we have the symbol, also the colors that we are using for these symbols seem to have, because it's a direct connection to David life, so they seem to have a certain order in manifestation. And as we know that the fifth ray, which is related to orange, it is going down into the matter and is separating the particles, the units. And this blue seemed to be, because it's the color of this present system, it really seems to have some kind of effect, uplift from that state. It is very interesting, and I wish that if anybody else would see that same way.
Well, they are, they are complementary colors, actually, and they have the whole solar angelic life and the life of the mental plane is involved with the colors orange and blue. So we've been, they're having their particular effect in your eye and your consciousness, but those are colors which really belong together. And the masters are expressing some of the lore about color in terms of complementary color. So we never know when they say orange, do they mean blue? When they say blue, do they mean orange? You see, in this particular
Right.
case, they were together, just like violet and yellow and red and green and so forth. So this whole study of the completeness and the relationship of complementary colors is very important. And it reminds me also that the Hebrew letters are all made of flames. They
That's
are,
right.
that's, and apparently these symbols do appear, and it's not that somebody just says, well, what shall the next letter be? They actually are like living Davidic flaming forms that actually appear and then were taken down, all 22 letters. So,
That is the secret of the letter, which is really occult. And if we think about what is said, that we conquer the speed, the last one, it is so hugely occult means, and the whole humanity is belonging to that letter producing organ of the planet, because we are the thought center.
yes,
So
so there's so much occultism in this, really, and when
right, and
yeah.
yes, what was said by Blavatsky and also by DK,
Mm,
that the color belongs to that the most secret, the most highly protected
yeah,
secrets, because it
yeah,
reveals so much connection to the Davidic forms, and
yeah,
thus
yeah,
it can be
yeah.
used also in destruction. But
Yes,
that was
yeah.
very interesting by out of the blue coming experience. So I would be very interested of knowing that would anybody else have this kind of
Well,
symbol.
we'll have to undertake this sometime. DK tells about certain groups that will be emerging for the helping of humanity, and one of them is precisely the kind of thing you're talking about, where the people are investigating the relationship between color and sound, and the law of vibration and the scale, and all of those interactions that have to do with vibration, light, color, sound, and color. A special group is that. But let's reserve that as a possibility. And if anybody has some thoughts about that, we can offer. We're moving along now. Let's see. I have to thank you, Tuija, for your thoughts on this. And now Michael had his hand up, and I just have to find you here. Okay, there you go. There you go, Michael. Yes, you're on. Okay, go ahead.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Um,
Good evening. Good night.
it's early morning. Um, Thoughts are things, right?
Well,
And energy follows thought, right?
we've been told.
Um,
Mm,
Words themselves are symbols. We don't have to think of symbols strictly as geometrical forms, but
right.
words themselves are symbols. That's why we have a dictionary, you know?
Okay. No, that's true.
But
That's true.
energy simply is, and when we apply thought, we direct that energy. And I think that's why Shakespeare wrote something to the effect of, there's nothing good nor bad, but thinking makes it so.
Yes. It's a good point. And we're talking about the creative arts emerging in the new Renaissance, which is destined shortly. He doesn't say when, but I imagine the coming in of the fourth ray from its monadic aspect will be part of that. And he says the very first expression of this will relate to the word. And not to the visual symbols, not to the visual arts, but to the art of the word and its meaning. So we're dealing with sound symbols or sound signs all the time. There's a difference between the sign and the symbol, right? A sign may simply indicate something, and be associated with something, but a symbol has a similar nature to the very thing it is to indicate. So we get into this onomatopoetic onomatopoeia, they call it, where the sound of the word suggests the thing that it indicates. And maybe that's somewhat of a more symbolic nature. Sometimes words are just signs, sometimes they are symbols. Anyway, it's a good point. It doesn't all have to be visual in that sense.
And I want to also add your thing about synesthesia. It is real, or I'll say it's actual.
Okay.
Yeah, Laurel's daughter actually wrote a paper about that in a college class, and the students didn't believe it, and the instructor says, "Oh yeah, it is out there."
Yeah, exactly. So, and there are these. I'm trying to remember. There was a composer. Oh, he was a Russian composer, and I'm forgetting his name now. Okay, but he had these sound and light and music shows which demonstrated, what he was seeing. I don't know why his name is slipping my mind, but he had this ability, and probably certain members of the Deva kingdom have it as well as certain very sensitive humans. So that's coming in our fourth ray Aquarian age as well. This Devic interaction of sound, color, vibration, and the visual image. So the synesthesia.
And perhaps,
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, perhaps one last thing.
Yeah.
Dwayne Carpenter's upcoming webinar later tonight.
Oh, good. Okay.
Will probably be addressing some of this.
Well, that'd be interesting. By the way, Joe, would you be so kind as can you put Dwayne's webinar link in the chat box if you have it?
Yes,
that'd be great. So more and more folks, more and more of the faculty members of the Moria Federation are offering something on their area of expertise, and Dwayne is very good in this area of color and sound. So I think it would be really worthwhile to attend his webinar. As a matter of fact, Joe, what immediate webinars do we have upcoming this weekend? Anything other than the faculty webinar? Is it Elena offering?
Wayne's, and I believe it's Francis on Sunday.
Okay.
Elena the next Saturday.
Saturday. Okay, Elena comes up Saturday.
The following Saturday.
Oh, okay. Well, there's lots
Wayne
to learn. Yeah.
Right, and then on Sunday is Francis with the Secret Doctrine.
Okay, very good. All right. Well, we're offering quite a bit, folks, through the Moria Federation, University of Seven Rays, and it's a big opportunity for learning and thinking together about the subjects of occultism and what DK has said about it, and what various of our faculty members understand about. That's it. You got it, Catherine. That's it. Alexander Scriabin. He's the one. He's so good. I'm glad. That's the group mind at work. So yes, Scriabin, and I think he was a Capricorn, something of that nature, with a fair amount of Sagittarius, and he had this ability to work with the interplay of sound and color, and it's going to come more and more as we approach the Deva Kingdom and they approach us. Thank you for that, Scriabin. That's it. Okay. All right. Friends, I think we must move on now. We must move on and have our meditation. Our subject, of course, the inner worlds, really, and the truth of the inner worlds. We have also distortion. Now we have the veils. We have the factors which are largely man-made or are engineered by the counterforce. What we have is the attempt to prevent us from broadening our consciousness and entering these subtle inner worlds which are filled with great joy and even bliss and excitement and livingness. We have this stultifying effect of the veils trying to be forced upon us by human beings that are not courageous enough to tell the truth and who simply lie, and we have this, it's extraordinary how truth has to fight for its survival at this time in the history of humanity. So we have to clarify the true from the untrue, and people are so bewildered. And when they are bewildered, they make incorrect choices about their leaders. And when those choices are made, the entire direction of nations and even of humanity itself can be compromised and go in directions which are not intended whatsoever. So the question is serious. We must bring truth, clarity, reality to the level of the astral plane, which the Tibetan considers to be the greatest plane of illusion. So I'm going to pull out our meditation. There it is. And we will continue to work so that the beautiful things that we are talking about, the beautiful possibilities, or as what Master D.K. calls the wonder of the New Age, the wonder of the New Age, can actually come to us in an undistorted form as intended, instead of being covered by the ugliness and darkness of fabrication, lie, misleading, twisting everything around so that the solar plexus gets its way. That's not what we want. We want the heart center in humanity to really open up with the coming of the first initiation. It should and will. And we have to subdue the evil effects of the selfish solar plexus center. Humanity is not yet at the second degree where a large amount of selfishness is subdued. Humanity is rather earlier than that. As a whole, it has not yet taken the first degree. There's still plenty of trouble with the solar plexus and its distortions. What we're trying to do here is clarify that. Okay, so let's do a little work together. And we'll just have some silence in which to allow the energies to regather and form a synthesis. So in the silence is found the synthesis. This is an idea in occultism, and it is true. And we do want to at least establish that soul, mind, brain alignment, which is so fundamental to all constructive work. Now we utilize the protective formula as we're entering the area of the greatest illusion at this time, using that term illusion in a broader generic sense, the distortion and falsification of the truth. And we're going to use the cross of divinity involving the eyes and this lighted cross, which helps us work in this area of danger with the possibility of less danger. There'll always be a risk. So, you have to watch yourself and make sure that no contamination reaches you. It can. Occultism is not for those who are risk adverse. It's a risk. So the cross, the lighted cross, and sometimes the three fingers, of the Trinity can be used. As a soul, I work in light, and darkness cannot touch me. I take my stand within the light. I work, and from that point, I never move. And feel the lightedness of this energy configuration we have emphasized. The heart, the ajna, and the two eyes. The meaning of the words. We stay in the light. And we do not leave the light, even as we confront the darkness, the veils, the clouds, the distortions, the miasmas, all the things that mislead people. So keep that figure of the cross of divinity burning bright, and then we bring light into the situation. We lift up the light of matter to the level of mind. And we blend it with the light of the reasoning, rational, clarifying mind. So the vitality, the light of matter from the etheric physical, uplifted, blended with the light of the lower mind. And we now think of the light of the soul aligning with it. We try to recognize the presence of soul light. this inner presence, the angel of the presence, the presence of the solar angel within the higher mental structure of the egoic lotus. It's a reality. And that soul light is brought down now through imagination. Let the soul light blend with the light of matter and of lower mind, and so we imaginatively witness the blending of the three lights. Three are one, and this is the basis of our beacon, group beacon, individual beacon. And we say together, followed by the sacred word, as we see the light we have created. The light is one. And in that light shall we see light. This is the light that turns the darkness into day. And then we enter the phase of the formula, and as we say these words, which reveal us as a group bridging between the world of the soul and the subtle world of glamour, we visualize the searchlight that arises from our triple light shining out upon the astral plane. This is not, confined within the aura of any one of us. It is shining forth upon the astral plane. Radiance are we and power. We stand forever with our hands stretched out, linking the heavens and the earth, the inner world of meaning and the subtle world of glamour. We reach into the light and bring it down to meet the need. We reach into the silent place and bring from thence the gift of understanding. Thus, with the light we work and turn the darkness into day. And we visualize that group beam made of all the individual beams, radiant, powerful, revelatory, and also effective as a weapon of light. And then we're going to strengthen the beam further with spiritual will. We invoke the spiritual will imaginatively from the monad, from the triad, the atmic level, from the jewel in the lotus, and from the synthesis petals, especially the will synthesis petal, and from the sacrifice petals, this spiritual will comes in contact with our beam, fortifying it, strengthening it. And we say, with power upon its beam, the light is focused on the goal. This beam then is strong and effective against the obscurations and distortions found in the world of glamour. Now, our glamour to be dissipated is the glamour of the lie, the falsification of the truth, the bending of reality to suit the desire nature. And let's pause for a moment and think of the consequences in human living and human consciousness of the glamour of falsification, the glamour of the lie. What are the consequences as far as we can see? And I think that in every case we will see that the welfare of the whole is not considered, and the distorted welfare of the part is emphasized. So these lies, they work against the unification of humanity. They work against right human relations. They undermine trust. They make cooperation ultimately impossible. Now, these words of power, let us work with respect to them. Emphasizing our united light, the strength, the brilliance of it, of our beam out there on the astral plane. The astral plane is not really a subjective plane. It's subtle, but not subjective. So it's out. The soul begins the realm of subjectivity. The power of our united light prevents the appearance of the glamour of the lie. The power of our united light negates the quality of the glamour from affecting humanity. The power of our united light destroys the life behind this glamour. Now we will enter into 5 minutes of silence and intensity of purpose as we see our beam penetrating the glamour, producing its weakening and its dissipation. 5 minutes of silence and intensity of purpose. In the Agni Yoga books, Master Morya addressed this, and he said, always repeat a thing 3 times for effectiveness. And his statement was, to be effective, lie, 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 perish. Thus he said. So may all distortions of the truth, all wrong emphasis, all veiling of those factors which are inconvenient, if the personality were to have its way, may these things be destroyed, and then may the governmental and social discourse be based on accuracy. The 5th ray enters, of course, and it doesn't mean that everyone knows the truth, but according to what each understands to be the truth, let that be put forward. Let that vision be put forward, and it will be corrected along the way. But as for the deliberate falsification, it is breaking down public trust and the possibility of right human relations and right international relations and so forth. That deliberate falsification has to go. Okay, so we withdraw our beam now from the astral plane back to the triple light upon the mental plane, closing the beam down for the moment, to be revived when we work again. And of course, when you do your individual work, as is also made possible by meditations in this book, you will have your own individual beam regarding the distortions which may arise in relation to your individual life. And we will now sound, as a matter of fact, I think I'd like to let us sound the great invocation together, and then the 3 ohms. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men. The purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. Thank you, friends, for being here. We have, over the weekend, various presentations in the Ask program. Tomorrow we're continuing with Invoking the Soul of Nations in groups of 10 that we have covered before, and we also talked about the opportunity of the North and South Korea Olympics, the Olympics in South Korea that joined the North this time. There are many factors that offer the possibility of coming together. We continue also with attracting money for hierarchical purposes. We have the new webinar with Dwayne Carpenter coming up, I guess later today. I think that's it. This is Friday. And that should all be in the chat box or the question box. And then we have Francis Donald's webinar. And you can continue to use the, Joe, would you kindly, if you can find it quickly, put the comprehensive link in for the Ask program. You probably have that, you know, most of the broadcasts that we do, they can be accessed via this comprehensive link, and Tuija will be presenting those two meditations. So please be with us if you can. And I'd simply like to re-emphasize the importance, of course, of the entire broadcast and webinar program, reaching you with a great deal of deep information, and also the meditations that the Tibetan wanted us to do, namely the reappearance of the Christ and the attracting of resources for hierarchical purposes, and the triangles, without which so much of this outer work could not be effective. And then, of course, treating nations as souls, which increasingly they must be. And when the soul arises to a certain extent in each nation, it will have its own esoteric school. 14 of them coming first, but then eventually any nation of any considerable development will have its own esoteric school. So please join us as much as possible for you, and we're very grateful for your presence. Let's continue to work together subjectively so that we can help the outer developments occur as they should. These are very challenging times, and together we can make a difference. Okay, many blessings, lots of love. Talk to you later, and Olivia and Tuija and I, for the Glamour Dissipation program, wish you well. Bye-bye.